kind of like your business. You could do everything right. Occasionally, you're not going to have the outcome that you want because inherently it's an unforgiving business. What I do as an aviator, or did as an aviator, and what you guys do. So a little bit about my background. I spent 34 years, a little more than 34 years in the military, 7 years of that on active duty. Most of that time, I flew helicopters. While I was in the National Guard, I also worked in healthcare, mostly in the pharmaceutical industry. From that, I've actually done some leadership training as an adjunct professor, so I've kind of looked at it from an academic perspective. And I then started my own consulting firm focused on, guess what, leadership and training. You can't say, I'm going to just take care of my people and I'm going to sacrifice what's good for the corporation. That's a really bad long-term strategy. You also can't say, well, I'm kind of a company person and I don't have my folks back, because the good people are going to leave. You have to show people that if something's important, you're there with them. When I was a young company commander, I'd just come out of flight school, and the Army tracks all of their time that aircraft are available. So every hour of the month, you had to say this aircraft was flyable or not flyable, right? And there's a percentage that we track that say you have to be at 85% of your flyable hours. So if you have 10 aircraft and you have 30 days, for the most part, 9 of those aircraft have to be available all the time, and they track it by the hour. So if you had an aircraft break on a Friday afternoon, which fortunately never happened, and you had the parts, you stayed until those parts got put on the aircraft, or you ate 48 hours of downtime on that airplane or that helicopter. So many nights, my crew chiefs would knock on my door, the knock you hate at 4:30. Hey, sir, we just had an aircraft come back and the tail rotor's got a ding in it and we got to change the tail rotor. I want to go home to my young family and my kids. But as a leader, you got to show them that you're dedicated if you want them to be dedicated. Integrity. Integrity is doing what's right, even when it's the harder path to take, rather than taking the easy, wrong path. When I was a battalion commander, I had a first sergeant that worked for me. He wasn't a very good first sergeant. He was a very good platoon sergeant. He had led people and fixed helicopters and trained folks. But when he got promoted to first sergeant, it was very administratively heavy, and he just wasn't very good at it. So when you hit 20 years in the National Guard, you get reviewed for whether you can stay longer. And one of the things that they value highly is, what does your battalion commander think? Should you stay? Should you be extended? Or is it time for you to retire? Now, we have about 10% of our force in the National Guard that works full-time, as well as kind of the weekend warriors, we used to call them. We work a couple weekends a month. And this gentleman happened to be a full-time employee as well as a part-time. If you lose your part-time job, you lose your full-time job. So I was really stuck. I had this guy that was not doing very well, but if I didn't recommend him to extend, he was going to lose his job, and that's how he paid his bills. Anybody ever had that kind of tough situation to decide? So I thought about it for a long time, and I called him in. So, Sergeant Jones, I have to tell you, you're coming up for this board, and I have to make a recommendation. And I'm very uncomfortable because I don't think you're doing it very well. And he said, sir, I'm not comfortable being a first sergeant. So here's my solution. I will recommend you to extend, to continue service, but I need you to take a reduction. You have to go back and take a demotion. So he wasn't very happy with me, but ultimately decided that he would take the demotion so that he could continue to work. And I didn't feel good about that, but I knew it was a decision I had to make. So a couple of months later, he said, sir, I wanted to thank you. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, sir, I went back to being a platoon sergeant, and I'm pretty good at that. That feels good. He said, not only that, but I lost some money being a first sergeant, but I got to go back on flight status as a platoon sergeant. And I get paid a little more for that. And I can come in one night a week and do additional work as a mechanic. And I get paid for that. So I'm making about the same money, and I'm doing a job that I feel like I'm contributing. So it's really worked out for the best for everybody. And as he walked out, I would love to tell you that I knew that was going to happen all the time. Obviously, I didn't. But I knew I had to make the right decision for the company. I couldn't let 40 people suffer to try to take care of one person. I'm a big believer, Peter Drucker, management guru for the last 50 years. He says that managers make sure that you are doing things right. Leaders make sure you are doing the right things. Challenge the process. I love this one because, you say we're in medicine, we're not allowed to challenge the process. There's opportunities every day. My daughter is in her second year of residency to be a pediatrician. While she was in medical school, she was working in a hospital, and she called one night very, very upset. She said that they had a patient that came in for a lower leg amputation. And she was talking to him. He was a late 50s guy, pretty healthy other than he was diabetic and had some peripheral vascular disease. And the anesthesiologist, who was an MD, wouldn't clear him for surgery because his red blood count was too low. He said, you can't do surgery on him until his red blood count comes up. So the surgeon said, well, we'll run a unit of whole blood, bring his red blood count up. And he said, then we'll check him and see if he's okay. Unfortunately, I think there was a small window to use the OR, I'm assuming, because rather than run the blood at a normal level, they kind of opened it up and ran it as quickly as possible into this patient. Well, he put the patient into congestive heart failure. And ultimately, the patient died the next day. And, my daughter called upset about, well, Dad, we actually killed a guy. So, well, you're not at a level that you can fix that. But that's why you are going through medical school, so that you can stop those things from happening when you're in the position to do it. I tell my wife raising kids is like putting them in a canoe or a rowboat, and you push it really hard in this direction. But ultimately, you got to give them the paddles. And they may keep going in that direction, or they may veer off. You have to have confidence in your folks that you've given them enough of a push in the right direction, that if they veer off a little, maybe they will come back with a better solution. Now again, not to take it outside of the lines, there's parameters they're not allowed to go outside of. That's true in any industry. And as a supervisor, as a leader, you have to monitor that, manage it, and keep them bounced inside the lines. But let them run. If you have thoroughbreds, let them run.